Welcome back. I'm rather incoherent, and it feels weird saying that again. There'll be a small channel update at the end of this. But for now, let's get right into the content at hand, which is reviewing the Drowned City, the newest campaign. Not quite so new as this comes out, but still the most recent by far. I'm going to do this in 3 phases. At the end, I'm going to go through in really high detail and talk about what I liked and didn't like on each scenario. But that's going to be very spoiler heavy, obviously. So I'm going to do a spoiler light review before that, where I talk vaguely and don't get specifics in terms of narrative or gameplay mechanisms. But I will have like very light spoilers because I just have to properly review it. But I'm also going to do right here at the front, spoiler free, how do I feel about it? Obviously, without any spoilers, I won't be able to give you good reasons for this, but my opinion, overwhelmingly positive. I have my gripes. There are things that could have been done better, absolutely. But this is my favorite campaign they've released since I got into the game. I started playing after Innsmouth, and I think it's the best campaign they've released while I was playing. It's probably in my top 3, definitely my top 5. Best thing they've made in the last half a decade. I really like the Drowned City as a campaign. It has its problems. It is definitely different to some other campaigns, especially on the narrative side. But despite all the things that make it different or weird in some ways, I think it's completely fantastic. I would recommend it heartily. I had a great time with it, and I think most people will as well. To say anything more than that requires specifics. It requires at least a spoiler-light discussion, so there's your warning. Moving into spoiler-light stuff, we'll talk about general narrative structure, the gameplay feel of it, and overarching design without specific mentions of how it works. So, moving out of that, I think the most notable thing with this is the campaign structure. I've got this awful little graphic here that I've assembled, but going into the campaign immediately, it is different from the original campaigns, similar in some ways to recent campaigns, in that there is a divergent structure of the campaign. You always start with the same introduction, and then you can either go west to east, starting at Western Wall, ending at Obsidian Canyons, or vice versa, east to west, starting at Obsidian Canyons and going to Western Wall. Regardless of what path you do, at the end, there are 2 different finales you can see depending on what you do in the campaign. I think that this is by far the best structure Fantasy Flight has done for a branching path in a campaign so far. I feel like it has the best balance depending on like when you go out of any previous campaign. I don't feel like there's a really hard thing in East Side that doesn't exist in West Side or vice versa. I feel like it's pretty well balanced in both directions. I feel like it has enough freedom of choice to not feel totally linear, but it doesn't have the analysis paralysis of pointless decision making and stuff like Scarlet Keys. And it doesn't have like freedom of choice, but not really like Hemlock Vale. It's just which version of the campaign do you want to play with meaningful differences between East to West and West to East. And then coming into the finale, without getting into specifics, I will say that I really like one of the finales for the campaign. For Arkham Horror in general, finales have had a tendency to drop the ball. I really don't feel like that's the case with this campaign. I feel like it's got a pretty high level of quality throughout the entire campaign, and I was really happy with it. There weren't any issues where I was like, oh wow, this is a major lack of polish like I had sometimes in Hemlock Vale. There weren't any issues where I thought something just sucked to play. That can happen sometimes where a campaign's generally very good, but there's just an awful scenario in it. But I don't really look at this campaign and think of a scenario where like, oh yeah, that scenario sucked. I'm dreading playing X when I go into it, right? If I sit down for most campaigns, I'm like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing, say, Before the Black Throne and Circle Undone. But that means I have to get through the Witches in the Graveyard, whatever that scenario is called. I don't think this campaign really has a weak scenario, at least not one that weak. Like, obviously, it has a worse scenario. Every campaign does. But overall, the quality level throughout the campaign is really high. I find the choice in terms of which route you're going to give 2 very distinct methods of playing the campaign. And I can't talk about comparison of specific routes or the finales without getting into direct spoilers, so I'll cover that at the end when I actually like open these boxes and show you what's in the scenarios and how I feel about them. I will also briefly cover in the spoiler heavy section what version of this do I think is the best, and I think there's like a very clear best version of this campaign, but again, can't talk about that just yet. Getting into the narrative side of things, what's in this book here. Getting into this book, there's going to be slight spoilers. I'm going to scroll out so you can't really see anything specifically. This is the end of the rule section. Prologue, introduction, scenario start. If we skip forward a ways, you'll keep seeing that. Scenario start, this is like the introductory text, setup immediately. There's not walls of text like there used to be. The text that is there is succinct and to the point. Now, I will say, part of the reason there's so little text is because this narrative really doesn't have any through line. There's not an overarching struggle. There's not a menacing presence that you're opposed to. There isn't a villain or a plot. The story of this campaign really is about going to the Drowned City and exploring. And that means there's not a strong narrative through line or hook for you to explore. For a lot of people, that was kind of a big deal and really turned them off of the campaign. For me personally, that doesn't matter. I will say that in spite of Drowned City not having an overarching narrative, it's just about going to and exploring Relea, I still enjoy the narrative of the scenarios. A great example of the sort of storytelling that I really valued in Arkham Horror is when you're first playing The Gathering, something in the tutorial, I forget what exactly it was, like you can read the front of the cards to get an idea of what's in there. And there's a room where like the front of it says you see a shifting shadow, and then you go in the room and it spawns a ghoul. It's like, oh shit, I should have known that's what it would mean. There's something to that effect somewhere in Night of the Zealot. And they very quickly stop having the rooms have like italicized text on the front that really conveys the mechanics of it. I love when the mechanics of the cards tell a story. Things like sliding down the stairs in the first scenario of Dream Eater's website, where you open the basement stairwell, there's the crashed wheelchair at the bottom, and then a foot test to go down faster. And it tells the narrative of trying to fly down the stairs in the wheelchair and crashing, right? You don't need words in italicized text, right? You don't need to write this paragraph right here to tell me a story. You can do that with the mechanics of cards. So while there is not an overarching narrative, and that hurts it for a lot of people, it doesn't particularly kill it for me. Because the overarching narrative is a thing I really experienced one time and doesn't really affect my enjoyment on subsequent playthroughs. And it wasn't even until, like, it wasn't during the campaign that I felt that. It was like after the campaign, I was like, what was the campaign about? And the answer was kind of like, fuck around and find out, I guess. That's what the campaign's about. The campaign is about Relea, the weird stuff in it. It does tell overarching stories. It tells narratives. There's just not a continuous narrative through line throughout the campaign. I do think that's a mark against the campaign. I wish it had one. But in spite of that, I don't think it really makes the campaign any worse. I think mechanically, the whole thing just plays really smoothly. I can't think of something for this campaign where I'm like, oh yeah, this is the campaign about Deep Ones, where they engage you and they deal stuff to you, like with the Innsmouth Conspiracy. I can't think of it being about foot and just insane amounts of difficulty like Forgotten Age. There's nothing like Tekka the Lilies from Edge of the Earth. There's nothing like the Shadows from the Scarlet Keys. This campaign really is just really smooth, well-made Arkham without any gimmicks to it. And I enjoy it quite a lot. But again, I can imagine somebody looking at that and being like, wow, it's just Arkham. I can't imagine saying that. I just wanted good Arkham. You could give me an infinite number of good Arkham campaigns and I would not be like, oh, wow, where's the gimmicks? But again, that might be a problem for some people. I would say that it's just good Arkham. There's not a through line to the narrative, but it still tells stories, and I really enjoyed everything about it. Now, having said that, it's time to get into heavy spoilers, start talking specifically about the scenarios, and I'm going to just like put a pause here for you to get out, because I'm going in heavy spoilers. I'm starting with the most important stuff. We're not going to go like left to right or anything. I'm just going to say the things that are most important to me in terms of heavy spoilers, and that's going to include my biggest gripes about very specific scenarios that I've been holding off on. I think I've been rambling enough. I think you know that if you don't want spoilers, it's time to get out. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. What the actual fuck is this scenario? Is this a joke? I'm still mad. So that we're clear, I played this scenario once, like 3 months ago. I played the campaign twice now, and Sepulchre the Sleeper feels like a joke. I don't even want to set it up. Like, I clicked setup, it looks like the box failed, right? There are 5 veritably identical rooms. After a short while, Cthulhu's going to spawn, and, well, as you can see, Cthulhu in a 3-player game has 60 health, and all you do in this scenario is kill Cthulhu or die to Cthulhu. This is an optional ending to the story. It feels horrifically unfinished. It feels like a challenge for a specific team, but if you build a team that can actually beat this, then it's actually going to be a stomp, and it's not going to be fun to do. It's going to be tedious as shit if you can deal this much damage to do it, or it's just going to kill you. There's no middle ground. No team is going to have a challenging, interesting scenario here. This scenario feels like it's a joke. To me, it feels like this entire scenario is just a joke. When you're doing the setup for it, you're given the option of going to the real finale by saying we should know better than to disturb whatever is inside, and you go to the real finale, which is a great thing I'll talk about later, or you can be like, we're just gonna go kill Cthulhu, it's fine, and then he murders you because you can't do that. This campaign particularly bothers me because right at the start, like, I'm fine with the narrative just killing you. Like, you just walk in and Cthulhu murders you. I'm not upset about that. But I have to go through the trouble of, like, actually setting it up, right? Here, Interlude 3, you can just be like, I don't want to go to Relaya. That sounds like a bad idea. You just lose the campaign immediately. They're not afraid to just give you a narrative choice where you lose the campaign and they expect the player to be like, okay, we don't do that. We take the other choice. They're fine with doing that. So what's the point of this scenario that's an extended joke about you not being able to fight Cthulhu? Because there's almost no mechanics here, right? You just get clues to put Doom on your shit. And putting Doom on your shit just marginally lowers the fight and evade values of Cthulhu. It doesn't even kill him. So you have to do outrageous amounts of damage to this guy over huge amounts of time. It's just an awful, grindy scenario. You might think it's a unique scenario, but if you take a look at this encounter set, there's literally nothing in here that's not used in other scenarios. All of this is used in other scenarios throughout the campaign. There's nothing new here. It's just, haha, you can't kill Cthulhu. And I'm fine with that. Just do it in a narrative box. Don't waste my time. This feels like it was meant to be something else. They ran out of development time to make it what it should have been, and they just left it in the unfinished shit state. However, there's a real finale, so we don't have to worry about that. That's a straight into D for don't tier. Never play that scenario. Thankfully, it doesn't affect my opinion of the campaign, because I don't ever have to look at it again. So this is the actual campaign structure I'm going to be talking about from here going forward, right? We have the start, the end, and the choice of east to west or west to east. And sort of hilariously, I think east to west, despite not being the one that like makes sense, right? Generally, when there are campaign choices and you're given the choice of going west to east or east to west, you can do scenarios in either order. You're like, well, this one says go to page 12 and this one goes to page 32. So it feels like west to east is more the intended the design path, right? But if you come down here, when you do that, you'll find you're filling from the bottom to the top instead of the top to the bottom. So despite Obsidian Canyon being the last scenario here, it kind of felt like it was originally designed as the first scenario. I'm honestly not sure which one was designed first or which is the more intended path, which is interesting. I kind of wonder if they just flipped one of them, like if they changed the order on this to make it unclear if there was a developer intended path. I've got no idea what the intention is. But based on my experience having played both of them now, somewhat biased experience, admittedly, I think east to west is by far the more fun path. I can't remember anything going west to east where I was like, oh, wow, this scenario seems so different from what I did in the future playing east to west. But playing east to west, there were several scenarios, the Drowned Quarter and Western Wall in particular, where I felt they were massively different from my experience playing it the other way. I feel like there's more meaningful changes to the scenarios in this path. I also feel like going Obsidian Canyons first is Obsidian Canyon as your second scenario is probably the hardest scenario in the campaign. That's the argument against doing this, but it also gives you the Obsidian Claw immediately, which is this thing. And you're going to start with it for most of the campaign. And it says Lightning Bolt, move up to 2 locations. Not move, just appear somewhere else. So you can actually bypass locations with detrimental text on them, which comes up a lot. Obsidian Claw is incredibly fun to play with. If you go east to west, you're going to have it for pretty much the entire campaign. You have it for these scenarios and this one. Whereas if you go west to east, you have it for one scenario, man. It sucks. It's so much fun to play with this card that playing the route that gets it far less of the time just feels like the less fun campaign. Additionally, I do think that genuinely the difficulty curve, aside from Obsidian Canyons being notably harder than the rest of the campaign, I felt like this didn't really have a difficult scenario at all. I just sort of walked through the campaign. Now, admittedly, in both of these runs, we had really strong teams, and I've been playing this game a long time. So maybe my opinion of difficulty curve is fucked, and me saying Obsidian Canyons is hard is actually like, oh shit, this is crazy hard. But I think Obsidian Canyons is like, my group full completed it. You can definitely beat it. Obsidian Canyon's one of those scenarios where everyone either loves it or hates it. It's a little bit confusing your first time through, but once you get a handle on how the wind mechanics work, I like just put tokens on the board to keep track of which way the wind was blowing and flip them as the wind was changing. It made it really easy to just quickly do it once I got the idea down in my head how the wind works. But Obsidian Canyons, if you don't dislike the mechanic of it, if you can get over that, I find to be a really fun, really intuitive scenario. I really enjoyed playing it. Has some very unique moments in it. But it includes one of the few polished problems in the entire campaign, which is Obsidian Cliffs, this location. Choose an adjacent open sky is a problematic line of text because you cannot guarantee that this will be next to adjacent open skies, right? with the wind blowing and not necessarily being able to be sure where this location is going to spawn, this can be a problem. It's something where full completion to some degree is up to Obsidian Cliffs, and it's just kind of frustrating. It's a very random thing, which usually doesn't show up too much in these campaigns, and I did not enjoy this. I feel like it should just say choose an open sky location. There's no reason it needs to be adjacent. And in fact, what my team ended up doing on our second playthrough, we got it on our first time, didn't realize it was random. On our second playthrough, we saw this location at 3 separate times. It was never next to an adjacent open sky. We had like 4 turns left where we were just sandbagging trying to get Obsidian Cliffs. We're like, do you just want a house rule that we can do a different open sky? Because like, it literally wasn't possible in this scenario to do this. So that's like one of the few polish issues, and I can imagine somebody having a bad time with the wind mechanic their first time through. But generally, I would say Obsidian Canyons is a really unique scenario, really fun to play, and I enjoy it a lot. It's also like the fact that it gives you this ridiculously overpowered item that allows you to, for example, play a Mystic with the best movement speed in the game. Like, it completely negates the weakness of an entire class. It's like you're playing a different game. It's very overpowered to the point that it makes the game more fun. And maybe that's not for everybody, but me personally, I loved playing Parallel Agnes with the ability to teleport once a turn. That shit was horribly broken, and it made it very fun. I suppose something I'll jump into now is the Doom of Arkham Part 1. This very much is just, you go back to Arkham, you do the thing, right? You go to Arkham, you get your relics back. This feels like it was originally one scenario, and they're like, hey, you know how everyone hated Hemlock Vale's finale for being way too long? I think we're doing that again. So this got separated off into its own thing, and I'm glad for it, because this is like a nice breather. You can stop before the finale and do this as part 1, take a break. You can do this at the end of a long session and have just the finale for the next day, or whatever the next play session is. But this is barely a scenario. I don't have negative things to say about it. It's just incredibly brief. It also has perhaps too much victory in it. This campaign in general is super high victory points. Everyone had just like ridiculous decks. My first campaign as George, I just didn't know what to do. I was done on like the apiary. I had my finished deck and I got like 30 more experience that I just didn't need. It's a stupidly high experience campaign, and this part 1 finale bit here is part of that. But I do want to quickly cover that if there's a weak point in the campaign, other than Sepulchre the Sleeper, which is optional and you just never choose to do it, it is the Doom of Arkham Part 1 kind of just being like a side effect of the narrative, just a thing you need to go do. Like, if this were just a paragraph that said, oh yeah, the guy you gave the stuff to, he turned into a crazy cultist and you had to kill him. You got your stuff, Cthulhu's here. Like, obviously it would be written better than that. But if this was just a paragraph in the story somewhere, I don't think it would meaningfully hurt the campaign. This is a very nothing scenario to me. I think these are easily the weakest parts of the campaign, but this is inoffensive, and Sepulchre the Sleeper is entirely optional. That gets us into the majority of the rest of the campaign. What do I have to say about this? Is anything standing out to me? Yes, let's talk about the finale itself, the actual finale. I really like the finale. I like the Cthulhu board. I like the Cthulhu deck. If I have any criticism of this, it is that this deck is all stuff you've seen before. If there is a card here where it's like, I think Oppressive Influence showed up before the finale, I couldn't tell you if it did or not. Nothing about this feels like unique to a finale. I'm sure there's something here that's a set that wasn't in the rest of the campaign, but it doesn't really feel like it, right? Yeah, see, here's Lay Waste. This is a foot test that deals 2 damage, and it scales up over the course of the scenario. Obviously, this is unique to the final scenario, but at the same time, it's just like, is it even that much worse than Grasping Hands? There's nothing in the final scenario that really feels unique to the final scenario, and I kind of get why, right? Like, they have the Cthulhu deck for that. And the Cthulhu deck is appropriately scary. There are things in it like, yeah, that's the one I was looking for, Demolition, where you're expected to climb on the rooftops, which I'll talk about in a second, to fight Cthulhu. But if you pull a Demolition, the rooftops get a token, and if they get a second token, everyone on the rooftops instantly dies, so you have to get off the roofs. There's a lot of interesting movement around the map because you're trying to unlock the roofs because they can't be flooded and Cthulhu can't get to them. And then once you're on the roofs, you can fight Cthulhu down below you at adjacent locations. It's really, really cool. This is just a scenario about fighting Cthulhu. If I have any criticism of it at all, it would be the optional final parts. Both times where we played this campaign, we at some point relatively quickly towards the end of it, we kill Cthulhu and we get to the end of it, And the objective is banish the Dreamer. If each Cthulhu enemy is in the victory display, that's what happens once you finally fully kill Cthulhu. And there are 5 locations with sigils on them immediately advance. So every time we played this, we kill Cthulhu, and we have like 2.5 to 3 turns left of just walking around putting sigils down. The first time we did it, I think we might have stopped a turn early. The second time we played this, as soon as we killed Cthulhu, we're like, we're fine. We managed to survive the Mythos phase when there was a Cthulhu deck that mattered, when Cthulhu was on the board. We're not going to do this thing where we walk around and place the relics down with no resistance to us whatsoever. So I would say that like maybe the finale is a little bit easy. We've had very strong fighters both times though. And I would say that this last part where you place down the sigils, at least in this route, doesn't really feel like it's not as bad as the ramp and Edge of the Earth, but it feels like extra steps I just didn't need to do, like we'd already won. But I really enjoy the scenario in spite of this, because like if you killed Cthulhu, no one's like, oh, we're cheating when we say we could spend 3 more turns to place these down. It's not a problem, right? And if my biggest criticism is I feel like I won too quickly, then that's probably not a real problem for the scenario after all. But I really enjoy fighting Cthulhu. I find the way that his wings function, well, the whole board, right? Where you need to deal a bit of damage to flip them, then you need to finish them off. I find the fact that he respawns at the end of the enemy phase, or sorry, at the end of the round, to be really, really effective in terms of preventing cheesing him and in terms of just making the game flow smoothly. The whole thing about this scenario is really refined. As much as I feel like they just straight up didn't finish the Sepulchre or the Sleeper, the Cthulhu board got all the polish it deserves, and it's really fun to fight the guy. I will note he is uniquely weak to Parallel Agnes duplicating Storm of Spirits level 3 repeatedly. That does just kill a boss that has, you know, 3 different body parts that are usually under 3 HP on them. Like, yeah, I just repeatedly one-shot Cthulhu with Storm of Spirits in our second run. He's uniquely counterattackable. But I like that too. I like this is a campaign where your Guardian's like, you know what? I've got 70 experience or whatever crazy number it is at the end of this. May as well buy some grenades for Cthulhu, right? I enjoy when counterattack is worth doing, and it feels like this is a campaign where it absolutely is, because there's such a unique threat that the entire final scenario is about. But yeah, I really like fighting Cthulhu. I think it's a really lemonade finale. It is just fighting Cthulhu like you've seen Arkham before, right? If you played Midnight Mask, you know these locations. They're the same ones. There are, of course, flooded locations that will show up as the scenario goes on. But in our 2 playthroughs, admittedly, we had great fighters and our teams were leaned decently heavily into fighting as well. They just didn't really matter much. Like, I can't remember needing to be at any of these for any period of time. And sure, they seem neat. I'd be happy to use these effects if I were at these locations and they function as a timer on the scenario. But at the same time, oh, are you okay, Tabletop Sim? It's all very normal. Don't worry about that. It's still going. I enjoy it constantly trying to draw the arrows. Oh, it's finally at peace. Gonna put this in the trash where it deserves to be, Jesus. Anyways, I really enjoy the finale. I think it's a great final boss fight. I don't know that we've actually had a finale before that was just a boss fight. And also, as always with any finale that's just a boss fight, there needs to be something for your Cluvers to do. They're able to spend clues to give other people plus damage at earlier rage levels when the boss only has 1 fist, because Cthulhu's, is it on the fist itself? Yeah, because he starts off at 1 rage, I think it is. Your Cluver can actually like spend a clue and just punch him. Like George Barnaby has 3 fists. He can just help fight at first and then start spending clues. You need the Cluvers to open up the rooftops by spending clues initially. Cluvers feel really relevant in this fight. It feels thematically appropriate, right? Like, it's what I was saying earlier. You don't need a narrative to tell a story. So what you're doing here when you're finding clues is you're like finding a path onto the rooftops. You're finding ways to drop pieces of buildings on Cthulhu, right? That's what this represents. You're finding ways to rig explosives, all these sorts of things. You don't need a page telling me, like, when you flip this, go to interlude 8.4 and read about how you got onto the rooftops. I know that's exaggeration, but you can tell narrative stories through mechanics, and I feel this whole campaign does that pretty well. And this final fight, where the Cluver's a really important part of the fight, is a great example of exactly that. Although, again, maybe contributing towards that problem, I seem to have deleted it already on the final act, I was wondering if they maybe wanted to give the Kluver more to do by placing the sigils, but it has to be a sigil you control. So like the whole party has to be walking around doing this. It's not just a Kluver thing. You just need to get the clues, and you were already doing that to help with fighting. The final seal is the weakest part of this. Just the action here and the objective to do it 5 times is a little bit tedious. But other than that, I love the scenario to bits. It's a great finale. I think I've mentioned all of my major criticisms. The bad optional scenario, this being a bit of a nothing scenario, having a sort of weird objective that just wastes a bit of time at the end of the finale, and the one RNG heavy piece of completion in Obsidian Canyons. Other than that, I can't remember something I was upset about. Maybe like I thought there should be more deep ones. There's not that many deep ones in a campaign about Relaya to the point it kind of feels like a mistake. Like I think both campaigns, we fought a single digit number of deep ones across the entire campaign. Maybe it got into low double digits. You just don't fight a lot of deep ones, which feels really weird for a campaign like this. But that's really more of like a small narrative gripe you realize after the fact, and not a detriment to the campaign in any way. I was originally going to break down every scenario in some degree of detail, but honestly, my opinion for most of these scenarios is that they are good Arkham, and I really enjoyed playing them. I don't have much more than that to say about them. I think Western Wall coming from the east is much more interesting because of the drowning rules actually mattering. I think Drowned Quarter is notably more difficult when, you know, it's had time to flood because you didn't get there first. I think seeing the difference in the apiary between the two paths is a really cool thing. Like, as far as the sort of Dark Souls lore style of storytelling goes, the best thing this campaign did is show off the progression of the infection in the apiary depending on when you show up there. I think that was really cool. But in terms of talking specifically about these scenarios, I don't really have a desire to do that. I think they're all pretty good Arkham. I think they're all very meaningfully distinct. I don't think they really play like any other scenario. It's not like I'm not playing this thinking, oh yeah, I've played this scenario before. There are some that really stand out to me, like the Grand Vault and Obsidian Canyons, as being really unique and really fun. But I don't really see a reason to place them all down and talk about them specifically. I don't think that really adds to the review. And I don't really have the personal desire to do a heavy breakdown of what's in the Mythos cards for them at this point in time. The main point for this spoiler-heavy section was to discuss in detail the lack of a narrative, but the lack of a need for narrative, and to discuss my biggest gripe being Sepulchre the Sleeper being awful, and like some very minor other issues like Arkham Part 1 being kind of a non-scenario, and a little bit of polish on Obsidian Canyons. But by and large, the campaign's just rock solid. I look back on the campaign, I have a lot of fond memories of different things happening. Even though I say it's like not super hard, at the same time, we had I think it was the Grand Vault on our first playthrough. Maybe it was our second playthrough, I'm not sure which one. We had just like such an atrocious enemy pileup off the start of the game, like the first 3 turns, before our flex character had drawn any of their fighting methods, that we would have had to mulligan with any fighter other than Michael. So like, it's not an easy campaign. I don't want to give that impression if I've made it sound like that at all. I just really like the campaign. I have nothing bad to say about it. Well, that's not true. I've said some bad things about it. I have very little bad to say about it and a ton of good. And most of the good boils down to there is very little getting in the way of me enjoying Arkham Horror with this campaign. There is not a bunch of narrative nonsense. There's not a bunch of cumbersome rules. There's not a bunch of polish issues. I can sit down and play modern, well-made Arkham with minimal interference between the process of wanting to play Arkham and getting to play Arkham. And that doesn't sound like a high bar, but it feels like the first campaign in years where that's the truth. And it's a really, really solid campaign, and I had a good time with it. And I would recommend other people who are playing Arkham play this campaign. I think it's in my top 3. It's real close. But regardless of where exactly it is, I have very fond memories of the campaign, and I'm looking forward to playing it again in the future. Now, moving on to the small channel update. No, this is not the return of regular Arkham content. I've just been wanting to make this for a while and haven't really wanted to post, having put up the permanent hiatus video relatively recently. And the permanent hiatus is kind of changing in tone, is something I've realized. Because it's not that this channel will be on permanent hiatus, because I've been looking at like how I'm doing on the new channel Incoherent, and I'm very happy with how it's been going. But I've realized that if I want to make any sort of long form content, and I do, I like making like multi-hour long deep dives into things. I really enjoy that type of content. I would like to make content that is more edited and more thought out and more like that. But I can't upload that on this channel for all the algorithm reasons that this channel is basically dead in terms of growth. And I wouldn't want to upload that on the new channel that I'm doing the Bazaar with, because if I were to do that, then again, all the same algorithm problems happening here would result in those long form videos getting a lot less viewership and shown to a lot less people than they should. With any large channel, you can look at so many different people to see this. They'll have like a main channel for long form videos and a VOD channel. Some have more than that. What I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to start using this not as a VOD channel because I'm not a streamer. I might be a streamer in the future, but I'm not currently one. If I become a streamer in the future, this will be a VOD channel. But right now, bizarre content is going to continue being uploaded daily on Incoherent. And in the future, not yet existing, there'll be a third channel for long form content. Once I decide what I'm making long-term content for, any sort of content I produce for that game that isn't long form. Let's say I'm doing, and this is not a hypothetical, a heavily modded 100 day survival challenge in Fallout 4. This is just something where I want to play Fallout 4 and I can use it as practice to make long form content. But there's also an audience for it and it's something I can make content on, so I'm going to do that. And hey, on top of that, the 10-year anniversary for Fallout 4 is coming up in November, so that too. So in the future, I'm going to make a third channel to upload long form content on, and this channel in the relatively near future, before that other channel even exists, will start showing off, you know, basically the sort of random shit I did before, where I'll be uploading like a Fallout 4 playthrough here. And I'm not going to be attached to like the viewership on those videos at all. I'm not going to look at the sub count on this channel even a little bit. The growth here doesn't matter. This is just a place for me to upload the footage for people who care about it. And when I'm uploading those videos to this channel, well, sure, I'm going to do my best to make good content. I'm not going to be super attached to them. I'm going to edit them fast and loose. I'm going to be saving the raw recording to make a much longer, better video on a different channel. This is sort of going to be like a VOD channel in that regard. And the major difference with how the channel used to be and how the channel will be going forward, well, there's two. One, there is no promise whatsoever of daily uploads. When I'm working on something, there'll be stuff going up on this channel. When I'm not, there won't. That's the end of it. Daily uploads are not happening. And the second thing is I have no concern whatsoever for genre. I don't care what sort of thing goes up on this channel. I don't care at all. And I'm not attached to viewership or sub growth or anything like that, because this channel is just here as a VOD channel. It is not meant to be growing, which, you know, it wasn't so fucking good. But that's the state of the channel going forward. You can expect to see some sort of Fallout 4 stuff getting uploaded here in the future. And I don't know that I'm going to be looking to do a lot of Bethesda content going forward. But I think doing a Fallout 4 long form campaign, editing it down really heavily, will be good practice for whatever I want to do in the future. Just like the back end of learning to edit slightly more effectively beyond just clipping things down, writing narratives using scripts, that sort of stuff, getting the next channel actually up and running, all these things. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed hearing this rambling late review of Drowned City. I love the campaign. I hope you enjoyed as well. And I hope you're looking forward to whatever nonsense garbage gets uploaded here in the future. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.